Hello, everybody, and welcome to another version of Gloves Off with David Singer. Today, I have a special guest, the mayor of Pinecrest, Mr. Joe Corradino.
Hello, David.
Hello, and thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Just really quick, follow up. Next week, we have Miami Foundation on the program. Rebecca Lipsky is coming in to discuss Miami Foundation, so make sure you tune in. Anyway, so it's a nice Thursday.
It is beautiful outside.
It's a beautiful. How you getting ready to get your shots?
Anytime I can get them, I'm ready.
Anytime.
Ready to go.
Call CVS. They seem to have a lot of slots.
Can you just walk in?
I think you have to make an appointment. I got my appointment for tomorrow morning, so I'm ready. I'm ready to be protected. This last year has been quite interesting.
It's been brutal, hasn't it? Been
Absolutely.
A year.
It's been an interesting year. So thank you. So let me start with some background information on you. I'm gonna quiz you. These are the easy questions.
Okay.
So
start me off easy.
So
feel comfortable.
So tell everybody what you do for a living.
I'm an urban planner. So I have a company. It's called the Corradino Group, and we've got about 300 people that work in offices from Michigan, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, here in Florida, Miami, or Tampa, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale. And we do primarily public sector work. I do a lot of work for municipalities. We do a lot of work for the state, planning work, roadway design, and then facilitate the construction of big state projects.
So I always tell people who are sitting on the opposite side of me, because I'm a CPA and sometimes I talk in CPA language, and people who are watching just get completely lost. Tell everybody what urban planning is.
Oh, in English?
In English, and dumb it down for me.
All right. So basically, we help local governments form policy and then implement that policy for their initiatives, right? So you start off with a strategic plan or a comprehensive plan. Think about your goals, objectives.
Okay, you're going to have to explain to me what a comprehensive and a strategic plan is.
Any government that's going to be successful has to have goals, and you got to think about it just like you would do in your normal life. And then you've got to achieve those goals. And as you go to achieve those goals, you got to figure out what's the best way to do it. So you look at a variety of options, figure out what it's going to cost. Money's not always the most important thing. Quality of life, community character, those types of things. You lay that all out for the leadership. Give them all the information you possibly can so that they can make the best decisions they can. Facilitate the conversation and let them go. And then you get great communities.
So how often do you, or would a community, say, take Pinecrest, for example, because you're the mayor, set out a strategic plan? Is it done on a yearly basis, every 5 years? Give me a timing about how often a strategic plan is done.
Pinecrest is a little unusual. We do our strategic planning every year. So we will sit, and we're still doing it now. We're on our third workshop. We start in January, typically, and we'll go through March. And we get together and have a conversation as a staff and as the elected officials. And the staff will tell us what they think their needs are for the year, not only administratively in their budgets, but what they see coming from the community. And the elected officials are informed by that. And then we kind of talk about this stuff. And what it does is then inform our budget making process, which happens, they'll start in March. They'll present us a budget sometime June. We'll mull it over in July, start to really pick it apart in public meetings in August, approve it in September, and then we start over again in January. And we just want to make sure that, not everything that goes in the strategic plan happens in that calendar year or budget year. Stuff may sit there for 3, 4, 5 years. And ultimately, we may say, we don't want to do it, we get rid of it. And it falls off, or we get it accomplished. So in Pinecrest, it's an annual exercise.
Okay, so do you do measurements every year to make sure that what you've said in what your goals are in your strategic plans are followed through, and you kind of like?
More so every year. I think this year we're getting a little bit more sophisticated and starting to put the ability to measure what we do in place. I'm a little less structured. I kind of run by a gut feel and those types of things. But we have a great council, a great team. Everybody's got a role to play. And
you've had great councils for years, by the way.
Yeah, for the most part, Pinecrest has been very fortunate. We've got typically a good group of people that gets together and each picks a role on the council, and we divide it up and attack. And it's a selfless group, which is is fantastic. They're wonderful people to work with. So the more analytic folks on the council, look, we need measurements. So we set that out there and start measuring it, and I think that's going to make us even better.
And you've had also, the good thing is you've had a village manager who I happen to know that's been around for a long time and really knows everything about.
You know what? Tomorrow is our 25th anniversary in Pinecrest. So we will have incorporated a quarter of a century ago, and our two earliest employees are still with the village. Our village clerk and our village manager both were one of the first three employees to join the village. So the institutional knowledge that lends us is invaluable.
That's really important, right? So everybody says, okay, in politics, unfortunately in politics, you lose a lot of institutional knowledge because you have, not necessarily in a small city, but you have Republicans and you have Democrats. And when a new regime comes in, unfortunately, they tend to get rid of people that really are not there for political reasons. They're professionals, and they get bombarded with the fact, well, you weren't on my team to begin with, so you got to leave. So they lose that kind of ability to know what happened 25 years ago, which is extremely important.
Yeah, we don't have that problem in Pinecrest. We're obviously all local government's nonpartisan. But like I say, and most of our council will tell you, barking dogs have no politics, right? And when you're dealing at the local level, man, we're dealing with the barking dog, the peacock, the sidewalk, those types of things, and they're not partisan issues. And so no matter what our personal politics are, we leave that aside. And really the staff, they do the day-to-day work. The council sets the policy, make sure it gets implemented. The staff has to go out there every day and make it work. And over the past 25 years, led by our clerk and our manager, and those guys work like a well-oiled machine. It's fantastic. Couldn't be more complimentary.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm sure from where I came from, the council seemed to get involved with the staff a little bit more than you would think that they should. But I don't think you have that situation in Pinecrest at all.
Well, every now and then people will get into that type of thing. But overall, we keep it.
I'm not into micromanagement. You hire a manager and a village attorney to do a job, and the second you start getting involved, you got 5 different people getting involved, barking different orders to them, and they really don't know which way's up.
Can you think about being a charter official in one of these cities, and typically you've got a big job, you've got a lot of staff to do, it's a very public position. Generally, you have 5 crazy bosses, right? Who wants that job? Well, let them do their job, stay out of the way. If there's a problem, that's when we deal with it from the policymaker's perspective. But other than that, let them do their job.
I think you and I had Tim Mirbot on the show have the same mindset. I just don't think that coming from where I came from that they had that same mindset. Like I said, I'm in the hiring people who actually want to take my job, so I want them to be able to do everything without me micromanaging.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these communities. Where else would you rather be as an elected official, a citizen, or a staff member? Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay. I mean, they all run pretty damn well. What do you're picking nits at the.
Yeah, well, the difference is your monthly council meetings and Cutler Bay's monthly council meetings last for a couple hours.
Oh,
I used to sit in council meetings for 6. I used to sit in council meetings for 6 hours. I mean, I'm just saying that's just the way it is. I mean, I'm not knocking it or anything else.
Some of these cities go 12 hours.
I mean, yours seem to flow a lot smoother, I guess, and Cutler Bay does. So whatever. Anyway,
I don't know. I don't know. I think they all. I've watched them all. I think they all flow relatively smoothly. Sometimes you got bigger problems. You got to deal with them, and they're a pain. But they. I don't know. I think all three. Where else would you rather be? I mean, you want to go up. I'm not going to name names, but
nowhere.
It's an embarrassment of riches. You got 3 of the best communities in the county.
Nowhere at all. I think where I live and I'm born and born and raised basically in Palmetto Bay. I'm very happy there. I mean,
beautiful place.
I go by my parents' house every once in a while.
See that? Where can you get that?
You can't. So a little bit of background. Where were you born?
I was born in Philadelphia.
Oh, Philly.
And I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. And my dad, we have a family civil engineering, urban planning business, and we have always had a presence in Miami. We've had an office in Miami since I was a young kid. So we spent a lot of time here over the years. And I moved here in 1996.
Oh, so you really haven't been here that long. I thought you've been here a lot longer.
25 years. And that's like almost forever. It's like half my life.
It's like dog years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel old. I mean, it's been
You're not old.
Long to me. Maybe not to you, but to me.
So you're the fourth mayor, and you served for 2 terms before that as a council?
Yes, sir.
And then you took a break, or you went right into?
No, you got to take at least a year break. The interesting circumstance with me is my 8 years are up. The previous mayor had 2 years left on her term, and so when she was done, she was term limited out. I decided to run.
That's great. Yeah. Did you run against anybody? I'm sorry, I don't know if you did or you didn't.
No, you know what's funny? Is that I had an opponent, and the opponent dropped out, and I was elected without opposition.
So you basically walked in there. The guy from Kentucky.
Yeah, they call it luck. They say lucky. I say no. Luck is the residue of design, as they say. So there's no such thing as luck.
So there's some questions. Oh, by the way, if anybody has any, here, look at this. I was going to say, if anybody has any questions, please email them, and I will ask him to answer. Let's see, Mary. Wow, that's an amazing mayor. Good for you all. Bill Cassell. Have attended many Pinecrest meetings. Enjoyable to attend. And many things could be learned and put in place in other communities like Cutler Bay. Pinecrest puts their resident first, and our representatives and town manager are outstanding. Yeah, compliments from people, right? Kelly, wow, impressive. Anyone in Palmetto Bay running for council with those credentials would be accused of overbuilding propaganda like we saw in 2020, sadly. Can you ask the mayor when he is going to shave? I could do that, Ed, but I don't want to. Mary,
when the emergency orders are lifted.
There you go. I didn't ask him, he answered. Mary, rather be in Pinecrest or Cutler Bay where things are run for the community as a whole, where they're not allowing monster apartment buildings.
Guys, be fair. Be fair. I'm going to push back. Look, guys, where would you rather be? Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, they're all the same. They're really 3 fantastic communities. I mean,
we have better parks than you do.
No, we just bought a park.
I know. Well, that's one of my questions.
We're trying to catch up.
That's my first question. What made your council purchase a 3.5 acres for parkland in Pinecrest? And tell everybody where it is.
One, it was available. We bought a new park. It's 3.5 acres, like you said, and it's at the corner of 88th Street and 67th Avenue. And this was a single-family estate density property that Judge Palermo, if anybody knew Mr. Palermo from years ago, had passed away, and his estate stole the property. And it's a tough place for single-family residential, particularly estate density. And there's institutional across the street. There are condos and apartments and those types of things. And there would have been a lot of pressure to change the zoning and do something with a higher use there. And we are absolutely not. One of the goals of our village is not to have intrusion into the residential area of the community. Even if it was multifamily, it wasn't appropriate for there. So instead of, by the way, we've been looking for a property for years. We haven't purchased a property, I want to say, in 20 something years. So instead of getting potentially down the road into a spat with somebody about zoning and those types of things, the way those things tend to work out, we decided to purchase the property from. We got lucky. We again able to find was willing to do it. So,
or did you have the money in reserves?
No, we got the money.
You have the money? Because we had a little conversation about this prior to us coming on.
Well, we used some of our, we did some bonding, did some reserves, retired some debt early, but we have ample reserves to do those
purchase stuff. Because I said to you, well, that's a smart idea because they could have broken zoning because of the trend of development. Because if you look at the 4 corners of where they are, you got an apartment, you got a church, and then you got another, you got a townhouses, you got condos, and then you have a church. And it would have been easier, it would be easy for a developer to go in there and say, look at the trend of development that this property really could be, for the most part, townhouses or condos. So that was pretty bright on your part. I know that basically Cutler Bay did the same thing. I like the idea of picking up some of these pocket parks. I guess it's 3.5 acres pocket park. I guess it'd be good.
If you got a big pocket.
Yeah, big pocket, and trying to have some green area. I mean, if you have ever been to Colorado, they do some of this, and in Colorado they buy a whole bunch of land to stop developers from developing.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's great, and that was passed
just this past Tuesday, I believe.
The second round or first round?
That's the only round we had to go through.
That's the only. Okay.
Yeah, we did it in one shot. Now we've been talking about it for
Yeah.
a while. It's been part of our plan for years, and we've been meeting on this for we've had several meetings about it. Thing is, when you've got a real estate deal, it's not like you can be typical government, and government's built to work slowly.
No, you got to get a couple of appraisals, right?
You got to get their appraisals. You got to do it. You got to act. You can't just string it along for years.
And you have to get a couple of appraisals, and you can't have to. What is it? The lowest price on the lowest value on appraisal is all you can spend for the most part.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different rules and stuff.
That's way
but I'm sure that your residents were happy with you picking up.
Yeah, overall the tenor has been very positive, and it's something I think the community, because we do strategic planning every year, it wasn't a surprise to people that we were looking for a property. Just when does the right thing come around? So nobody was surprised by it. I think generally people are happy. Now the hard part is how do you fit it into the neighborhood? Because you got to remember it is surrounded by a state density residential, so it's got to fit. And we'll start that process not immediately. But
it was going to be somehow walled off or something.
Yeah, we don't know. I don't know exactly how it'll work, but we're good at that because we've got a number of parks that I think nestle right into these single-family estate density neighborhoods, and you can't over-program it, right? You don't want it to be too loud.
Is it going to be active or passive?
We don't know yet. But right now, we're just going to keep it passive.
I mean, I think the last park you bought could be the Pear Jungle.
Yeah. Probably, likely so.
That
or Flagler Grove on 104th Street.
Yeah, that was a great purchase too.
Yeah.
I used to play Ultimate Frisbee in Flagler Grove.
We probably banned that now.
Probably. I was the slowest guy out there.
Really?
Always caught Frisbees in my forehead. It was terrible. What I really wish Chapman would really move a little bit quicker than it has.
Man.
But I grew up playing baseball and softball there. But I heard they're coming around.
They're coming around. They'll get that. It's overgrown. Well, since it was last used, it looks like it's the Amazon rainforest.
It's a forest. I mean, I was
just a mess.
What's funny is we were out there and I jumped over the fence about a year ago.
You got back. Well,
and because I wanted to take pictures of it, because I'm like, come on, my kids were, played baseball there or whatever. I want to see what it looks like. So I got chased out of here and I jumped back over the fence, and I could hardly, my age, it's very hard to jump over a fence. It's pretty funny. So let's talk about the transit corridor and what you guys, first of all, the BTU. Let's talk about that. What do you think of, the BRT. What do you think of the BRT instead of elevated rail?
Finally, after 4 decades of missing the train, we've got the right solution, right? The bus rapid transit is a right-sized solution for Miami-Dade County. Rail was never feasible. That's why they didn't carry it south of Dadeland in the 1980s. Unfortunately, we've been perpetuating a myth that we were promised rail, but it doesn't work. And it couldn't work. There is no intensity. There's not enough population and employment within the station areas to warrant rail. It would have never won money from the federal government. And we've proven that decade after decade after decade. Whereas if you put in the right-sized piece of transit, like we've got with the bus rapid transit, it does fit. It did win money from the federal government very, very quickly. It'll get built. And if the communities really want to go to rail, just increase, just put population and employment in your station areas to warrant rail. Mind you, that's about 20,000 people per station area at a density of about 125 units an acre. So I'm sure the people of Pinecrest don't want rail, and I'm betting you the people up and down the corridor outside of maybe 1 or 2 places really want rail. So.
Okay, so you just threw out a whole bunch of statistics. And didn't I warn you have to dumb it down for me? So
that was as bad as I get. It was as dumb as it gets.
So explain that to people that are watching, because there's a lot of people that are watching that don't necessarily understand why we went the way we went with bus rapid transit instead of the overhead rail, or at least rail on grade?
Because you have to borrow the money, not borrow, but the federal government's got to give you the money to build your project. And when you put a proposal in to build it, they want to make sure it's cost effective. So they want to make sure that the number of riders, the cost per rider is competitive with other projects, right? So they have, in its very most simple form, they have a table. You got to rank medium on this table to even be competitive. But when you're competing for rail, you're competing with Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, Los Angeles, right? And you just can't have that many riders. So particularly, I looked at Pinecrest. I was looking up today, and Pinecrest, if you need 20,000 people in a station area, right, to generate the capacity for rail, I looked at the northeast quadrant of 136th Street. That's the Home Depot site, right? It's got about 600 jobs in it and 0 people, right? So you're going to put rail in a place with 0 people. Well, who's going to get on the rail? Like, there's no people, right? And there's very few jobs. So you've got to re-examine your station areas to get that. So many of the downtowns, if there are any downtowns along the U.S. corridor, simply don't not even land use to have population, and the employment is just strip commercial. So nobody will give you, by the way, rail costs $1 billion. Nobody's going to give you $1 billion for nobody to ride it, right? So,
well, I'd make the argument with you that I've paid, since 2004 or whatever, half a cent sales tax that I was promised some sort of. Listen, I'm very happy because I don't think the south end of the county can wait another 6 to 8 years for rail that's not on grade.
It wouldn't have been 6 or 8 years. It would never have happened. You couldn't put the density in. And so what are we going to perpetuate? The myth that it could be done? Well, we're sold a bill of goods. They knew it couldn't be done in the 1980s. Yet we were sold another falsehood going through the PTP. What are we going to do? Let's do the right thing. And thank goodness now the community did what was right. And we've got a right-sized piece of transit that we can go. You can upscale it up to rail if you need to over the years.
I mean, yeah, it's going in to be able to convert it into rail on grade. I mean, everything they build, I think, from what I understand, you'll be able to convert it in 5 years if they get the traffic.
Yeah.
But, and with what's going on in Dade County, they want a lot more activity. Whether it's housing or office buildings around the different stations that they're building. But, those areas are pretty much built up right now. It's not like on 27th Avenue where they had a parking lot that they're putting, I think a Target's going in there, and I think apartments are going in.
Well, the county's doing their best. They've upzoned, they've changed the land use on the county side of the US 1 corridor to 60 units an acre in between the stations, and I think it's 125 units an acre in the station areas. Now,
with no parking, by the way.
I haven't seen the parking standards, but typically rail.
The parking standards are going to be a lot.
You don't want parking.
I know, but you can't tell me that people that live in Miami do not have at least one car. So the parking standards are going to be a little bit tricky. I like the idea of living, on the line. I think people will buy into that. But I don't like the way they've downzoned. Is downzone? It's not really downzone, but they've degraded the ability to park there. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, the federal government has rules on how much parking you can have and those types of things because, again, it's supposed to be a transit-oriented type of development, which means for the most part, people, go most places by train. So maybe if the average person in Miami-Dade County has 2.5 cars per household, they'll want you to have maybe 1 car per household in a place like that. But really, it's up to the locals now because now it's just predicated on how much population and employment you can put in a station area, and that's simply a matter of a local land use and zoning change. You could do it tomorrow if you wanted to.
But Pinecrest doesn't have any control over the west side of US 1.
No.
At all. So you really don't have any input what they put on there because that's Dade County. So you might end up with, you're not going to end up with apartments necessarily being on the east side of US 1, but you may end up having a lot of apartments on the west side of US 1 up and down the Pinecrest corridor.
Well, first order of business in my world is worry about what you can control.
Control.
So I can't control
I get
Miami-Dade
that.
County, so
Yeah.
I'm not really concerned what they're going to do there. What we're going to do in Pinecrest, knowing that this is coming, that the BRT is coming, as we started today, we're going to look at what's appropriate there. Now, my personal opinion, just right now, back of the envelope, is that for bus rapid transit, 125 units an acre is not appropriate. It's too dense, and it's not, when people in Pinecrest probably won't want it. So our exercise is to go back, look at what is appropriate for bus rapid transit, see what it would look like on a property near the station area, and then see if we want to make that change. I mean, we don't have mixed use in Pinecrest, so that's a negative right there, right? I mean, contemporary planning along a corridor like that, you would want to have some mixed use residential, commercial at the same time. Also, we're looking at potentially going back to some zoning we used to have in Pinecrest, which looked at townhomes along in our RU2 corridor, which immediately abuts the US 1 commercial corridor, and that's an interesting. We're, like I said before, really protecting against commercial intrusion into the residential area. If we can do the mixed use, it can contemplate the mixed use, have a conversation about that, and see if you could push residential into the commercial corridor instead of commercial into the residential corridor. And then, as one of our council members, Anna Hokemer, had said today, which is a brilliant observation, look, people in Pinecrest need a place to live as they age and get out of the acre estate, and the young folks need a place to come back. The townhome in abutting the US 1 corridor is a perfect place for those type of people in Pinecrest who are coming in and out.
Well, it's a step down too, right? So you have single family homes and you have townhomes and what. So
yeah, you'd have commercial, you'd have townhomes, and then you'd have duplex.
And they have that I went to Washington D.C. about 2 years ago, and that's kind of like what they were doing in that area.
Transitional zone.
Yeah,
you just
transitional. So let me ask a question. So how far off the rail line is the zone? Is it a half a mile?
Well, that's the crazy part about it. I mean, yeah, sure. The county says a half a mile from US 1, they're going to have 60 units an acre, 36 units an acre. I mean, if you drew a line a half a mile from US 1 and put it in a map of our communities,
you'd be at Palmetto Senior High School probably, right?
So it's not so exactly. That's the point, right? We can't not have the conversation, because the next thing you know, somebody's coming in and trying to force us to do something that's totally inappropriate for the village of Pinecrest or any of our communities. So we want to address it head on. There's not going to be multifamily residential a half mile into Pinecrest. It's never going to happen, and we'll make sure of that. But you know what? If we have a site that surrounds a station area, and maybe it's in currently a commercial corridor, we'll consider making the appropriate change there. What that is, we don't know yet, and we don't know if we would do it, but we certainly are going to think about it. We're not going to ignore it, because it's not going to go away.
So would the county be able to usurp what zoning rules you have within Pinecrest because of what they're trying to put in place with the corridor?
We all incorporated because of the county, the things that the county had done. And I don't want to test that. I want to make our own decisions. If we're going to put mixed use or multifamily in the US 1 corridor, I want it to be our decision, not the county's decision. Who knows? They could compel you.
Yeah.
We've changed our comprehensive plan. You guys are going to look at your plan. You need to match, just like you said, you need to match what's surrounding you. And that could happen. I think if we were to consider and act first, we protect ourselves from that as much as
I just can't imagine 125. I mean, I've been in real estate for a long time. 125 units per acre is just mind-boggling.
It's a very blunt tool, right? That you would say 125. Can you?
I mean, that's not even a mid-rise. I mean, that's not a mid-rise. That's not a mid-rise. I mean, that's not a mid-rise apartment complex or a condo complex. That's
it's Dadeland. Yeah. Look, Dadeland is 250 units an acre, unlimited height. Cutler Bay in the Southland Mall, I believe, is 250 an acre with 16-foot height that they spread out. And that's not
16 stories.
16 stories.
Okay.
That's not what Pinecrest envisions for its community.
No, I think overall, I think, mid-rises here and there, I think that really what they want to happen, I think it kills a lot of communities up and down, up and down US 1.
What do you mean?
It's unfortunate. Well, if they are requiring that basically that some of our municipalities or other sister communities eat what they want, do 125, or I think that hinders the community that I grew up in, and probably that you're the mayor of.
Well, look, it's there's no
It's
question.
a nice tax base.
Well, it's a great tax base. Things change all the time, right? You can't. We want slow, measured, managed growth. Right? We don't want things to get out of control, and we don't want anybody to control it except ourselves, because we know what's best for our communities. No matter which community in, that's a local land use, and zoning, in my opinion, is a local choice. Now you got to balance that with the regional needs from transportation, because you got to get people onto the rapid transit system, because they're overwhelming our neighborhoods. If they don't get on the rapid transit system, we got problems.
I know, but there's a community to the north of us that has built these apartments, let's just say somewhere off Lejeune Road, okay, that they're so massive that they overtake US 1.
Yeah.
And we're not going to, we don't have to say what community it is. I would hate to see that happen anywhere from South Miami down to Homestead, because it's just not preferred. I mean, there has to be some control over that.
And that's where we step, right? That's where local government steps in. And I'm sure there was a market for it, because somebody paid to build it, right? And there was, the local attitude was that was acceptable there. I tend to agree with you. I don't think that would be something that would be welcome south of 88th Street. I mean, my personal experience being in Pinecrest for so many years is, that's not good. I mean, I think a 4-story, I don't even want to talk about stories, because it doesn't matter. We're allowed 4 now. We're not contemplating height. We're looking at how many units an acre would fit there, and we'll work through that before, but certainly not anything like that. Nothing like that's being considered.
Okay. What are your thoughts on bringing further economic development to your village?
Well, again, we're almost primarily a residential community. We have some commercial on the US 1 corridor. We do find the way it is. I think that if you were to look at the US 1 corridor and do a mixed use, I think you enhance the economic viability of the community. Raise your tax.
So, what percentage of your real estate tax income comes from residential, and what comes from commercial?
I'd be guessing. I would say that.
You don't know that? See, that's why I'm a CPA.
I'm just a planner.
I like
two thirds. I would say is residential.
Residential?
I'm gonna bet.
Okay, that's
not be wrong. I'm not.
There's a cap, so that's a.
Well, don't quote me.
No, I won't quote you. Did you dip in any of the reserves when you went through COVID in the last year?
I probably a little bit, but not much. I mean, I think we're probably looking for reimbursements. We got some of that CARES money, and we'll have to get paid back for some of this stuff. But I think we.
So you applied for some, and I know the government just the 1.9 trillion, or was it 1.8 trillion? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, but they should be. I mean, I think they're planning on giving money out to municipalities.
That money will be able, if we've spent anything that we need to be reimbursed, we'll be able to use some of that money for that. So we're going to come out of this as whole as we could be. That being said, it's been a year-long hurricane, so man, you got to do your best. It's not an easy time.
Well, the best thing about COVID is my air conditioning is still on.
Yeah.
I have to stay in my house, but there is some downside too, because after a hurricane, and I don't think you weren't here during Andrew or some of the other guys. Neighbors actually got to go know neighbors, right? And it's kind of like complete opposite effect with COVID, because you don't want to talk to anybody. You just want to stay in your house and play it safe.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? In my neighborhood, everybody's walking around. See how many people are walking on the streets these days, right?
Or riding their bikes.
Yeah, a hard time. You can't even build a sidewalk in these.
Believe me, I go through your village every day to get to work.
And there are people using the streets and sidewalks, and they're riding their bikes, and it's almost like we went back in time a generation, right, when we were kids.
That's because they don't have to be at work.
That's right.
I mean, really, literally, I would assume that 40% of the people are still working from home.
I think in our communities, that's truly the case. I think they're more their businesses are such that it lends very easily to working at home, which is I don't know if it'll ever go back full force.
I've had this disagreement with friends of mine that are in the office world, and I don't think, listen, it's all about bottom line, and if you can get more productivity out of an employee and you don't have to pay as much rent, I think it's a no-brainer. Look, the fact of the matter is, it's an hour drive. I guess the average person spends an hour drive going to and coming from work. So you get those 2 hours, okay? You don't have a space that's costing you $45 a square foot for an office building. I think it's all about, and if you get them to focus a little bit more instead of hanging around the water cooler, not that I have a problem with hanging around the water cooler, but I think your bottom line picks up.
I think you're exactly right. I think that's absolutely true. I have a feeling that a person has a tolerance to be out of the house for only a certain amount of hours in a day, or work for a certain amount of hours in a day. When you spend 2 of those driving, that's totally wasted time. And from the employer's perspective or the productive employee's perspective, those 2 hours are really good. You get a lot of flexibility if you can save 10 hours a week in driving.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've started working because sometimes I work from home. Most of the time I work from work, but I'll wake up or whatever and I'll work, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Because I know I don't have to be in my car an hour later and I'll get work done there. So it's a 24-hour day. I don't think everybody's, they're, what do I say? Like attorneys have to bill a certain amount of hours every year or they don't get their bonus. So, if you can sit there and get an attorney once their kids go to bed, their kids, they have quality time with their family, right? They've had dinner, they played, whatever with their kid. They watch a little TV with their kid. Once the kids are bed, they're just working from their house and they're still making that. They're making their allocated amount of hours that they have to.
Yeah, I think the flexibility is just raises your quality of life. I mean, if you can tolerate it, some people hate it. So they go back to the office.
Sometimes I have a hard time working from home. There's a lot of distractions, but most of the time I'm doing okay.
You told me your dogs had puppies, so
my dog. Yeah, well, if I'm a little slow today, it's because my dog started having puppies at 10:30 last night and finally got done at 4. So, hot topic, and it's political.
Oh, gosh.
But you don't have to. But you can stay away from the political end of it.
All right.
What are your thoughts on the overall basis of grid completion? I'm not talking about one bridge. I'm just talking about doing something that's been set out for years.
You really want me to answer that question?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Look, it's a.
I would not have brought you on here
if you weren't going to get me with.
I don't want to. Listen, there's a reason it's called gloves off.
Look,
I want honest answers.
The fact of the matter is that roadway capacity on those roads is critical. It helps the traffic flow, right? And so a complete grid is an important thing. Do you have to complete it all at once or in every situation? No. I mean, you complete it when you really need to.
Okay, so you're an urban planner, so let's throw some of the anti-bridge explanations why they don't want the bridge. Because I was anti-bridge for a while, and then I read a report.
Do you blame anybody for being
anti-bridge?
No, I
mean,
come on.
I
so
absolutely
you
do
build
not
a house
blame
on the
one
other side
person.
of a street.
Don't blame anybody for being anti-bridge. I don't. But let's throw some of the. I was telling Mike Miller I want to start a talk show called Facts or Opinion, and I want to put facts on the board and opinions on the board, and I want to sit there and I want to ask somebody if they think it's a fact or an opinion, because most people sit there and think opinions are facts, and some people don't believe the facts are facts.
And coming out of the last 4 years, who's going to be the arbiter of fact or opinion? Right now, the TPO is.
Yeah.
So it's not even a local issue, right?
So they say crime will increase. They say house value will decrease. They say, these are the anti-bridges. And I told you, I stood up at the TPO 4 years ago and I said, I don't think the bridge works for the community. I think it's a dangerous thing. And my mind really was made up after the fire department came in and said, because of them not having a bridge there, it increases the ability for them to go to somebody's house and probably save a life. Which to me, okay, I understand you don't want a bridge, but I don't want somebody to die either because there's no bridge there. So,
but we went decades without a fire station in the neighborhood.
Correct, and somebody died.
Well,
Maybe more than one. You don't know.
I don't know if you can quantify any of this.
Yeah. No, well, I know there's a reason that there was a fire station built there. And it was because whatever. So do you think house values decrease because the bridges are?
I mean, it all depends on the circumstance. I mean, you think the house at the base of the bridge value is going to go up? I don't know. You change the character of the neighborhood in a certain extent, right? Maybe not the entire neighborhood, but certainly if you're on the north side of the bridge where it lands, those handful of houses.
How about the south side?
The neighborhood changes.
South side, same thing.
Nobody fronts that street on the south side.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily matter. But so yeah, and in that sense, you change the character of that street. And so, do you think that a block north or 2 blocks north or a mile, you're going to change the character of the neighborhood or the price of the houses? That's debatable. I don't know.
How about crime? No. How about danger to the residents that live off a bridge? And I'm not even talking about 87th, okay? Because I'm trying to keep it non-political. 87th. You think it's more dangerous for people that live on 87th?
But this is a silly conversation, right? If you want to answer the question both ways, yeah, you got more cars and more pedestrians, the opportunity to get run over is more. So somebody could say yes. Is it functionally more dangerous? Are you going to see more fatalities? Probably you can't draw a correlation to it. But the silly part of it is, what do you expect these folks to do, right? I mean,
which folks?
Both, right? First off, that's an enormous problem. That's an acute problem. That's probably one of the worst in the county right there.
I agree with that.
Right. And so,
I mean, I tell people the story all the time. I've sat there and I watched somebody that trying to leave their house and they couldn't back out of their driveway for 15 minutes.
So what do you think? I mean, that's bogging up all those people to the south. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, the bridge connectivity would be a good thing. Otherwise, on the north, what do you expect them to think? I mean, it's a difficult thing to swallow. I mean, I don't know if anybody really understands it very well. And you've got a lot of fear out there. And I wouldn't want to be in that situation. I think it's a bad situation to be in if you're on one of the councils or one of the mayors. I think both of them have done a very good job of trying to make sense of the whole thing and lend some sanity to the whole thing. Ultimately, it's not their decision. It's the TPO's decision. And they've got to make the decision. That's why they.
That's going to be on
that's where they are. It's a county road. Remember, it really doesn't have anything to do with the locals.
Yeah, I mean, you have 4 north-south roads going through Pinecrest, and for the most part, those are, when I drive them anyway, they seem to flow very smoothly.
Look, the issue in Pinecrest is all of our roads go through. So we have we don't have the bottlenecks that you have.
Well, you don't have the canals we have.
Right. So I think in South, the roads are, US 1 cuts the community on a diagonal. Our sections and half sections all go through. The one place where our section line doesn't go through, 62nd Avenue, is teed off at about 104th Street. And then the traffic gets on what is not a section or a half section, which is 60th Avenue, and then starts to filter east to 57th, which is one of the legitimate places that we would need traffic calming. But it's an accident of geography down there, with one route up, right? You got US 1, Old Cutler, and then you go 87th, 168th, 82nd. It's a mess. They didn't make it. They didn't make the mess.
No.
It's a mess.
I mean, I always say, since I've lived here since '61, I said it to Alex Pinellas because he was on last week. I said, the problem with Miami-Dade County is they've always built, but I'm worried about infrastructure later.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is just, and it's kind of almost ass backwards since I was a kid, because you should actually do infrastructure and plan it out, okay, and then build the houses. But it's never been.
It's been a developer-friendly community at the expense of the future residents for the entire time. And Pinecrest is no different. We have still 750 homes, plus or minus, without access to drinkable water, potable water. No, there's no pipes, right? And that number was huge. Can you imagine? No water, and by the way, no sewer.
By the way, have you ever heard of Cinderella dry cleaning?
Yes, I have, and I used to live in that neighborhood, as a matter of fact, too. And we had water by that point in time, but there were people that resisted it, and so you're showering in arsenic, and those are the things, right? Remember, Miami-Dade County is a very young community. We're just barely over 100 years old, and we haven't matured. And I don't think that in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, anybody contemplated not only the total population of this place, but the population boom that it would undertake in such short periods of time.
And so it's ebb and flowed.
And it ebbs and flows. It booms and busts. And there's always somebody there the next 10 years to keep going with it. And so they developed Pinecrest with no water and no sewer, right? Doesn't make sense. Now you got down south, they're building 5,000 units at a pop.
The water and sewer, you had that on a referendum, right?
Yeah, we did.
And how'd it go down?
We have a very small percentage of homes now. It's actually,
well, they're using well water.
There's 750 homes out of 6,000 basically are using well water. And so we thought that we could polish off this project for $10 to $12 million. The first question that you would have to ask that had never been asked before was, would the entire community be willing to foot this bill and knock this project out? We thought the total price per house, if you did it that way, was small enough potentially that folks wouldn't notice. By the way, you needed to ask that question before you could then ask the last question, which was, okay, you 750, do you want to pay for the water? So we asked the question, and it expectedly failed with about 60 by a ton.
So are the 750 houses that are living off well, are they willing to foot the bill?
So far, nobody's come forward to ask for a special assessment district in that. That's the only way to do it right now, because it's the county's infrastructure. The county won't build the infrastructure. They leave it off on the homeowner. It's their project. So we're working with the community. If they want to, if they've got a critical mass and want to be able to tax themselves to put the water in, we're willing to facilitate that with them. But we won't. It's not our project unless we were somehow attain a great sum of money from the federal government.
So is it possible to just do the water and not do the sewer?
You're going to have to, because there's 6,000 properties without sewer. Nobody's got sewer, and that's
I don't have sewer either.
Yeah, it's infinitely more expensive
Which is
than a water project.
Going to be huge. I mean, we're environmentalists, right?
Billions.
So it's a huge problem that I still have sewer, and I'd love to sit there and have pay a little extra money every month and not have sewer anymore, because it is really I mean, you got to understand that. It is poisoning our water.
Oh my point! It's killing the bay.
Yeah.
The county's got to address that eventually. But again, I'm impressed with our county commission now. I think they've got a lot of young, fresh people on there that will do the right thing. But this is a tough one to carry. There's a lot of money.
Well, I wonder how many houses have septic tanks out there.
There's a study out there that has the number, and it's a lot. I mean, I won't quote the number because I'll get it wrong, but it's a lot.
But once again, it's
6,000 homes. 6,000 homes in Pinecrest.
Yeah, I mean, it's poisoning the environment. It's poisoning the water. It's poisoning the bay. Something's got to be done.
Can you imagine if you had a well, and then you had to pull water out of the well and drink it, and you're in a community of all septic tanks?
No. Okay, let's skip that question because it's kind of disgusting. What are the overall goals for the Biscayne National Park Committee that you selected Tim Murbot to, and how much money will they oversee?
I don't know how much money they're going to oversee.
No.
I think that's a work in progress. I think that Murbot is a perfect guy for that committee. I mean, he's
great.
Down south. He understands the Bay really well. They've always been leaders in the environmental initiatives, and so they're going to look over the Bay and hopefully come up with ways to protect it. And I'm not quite sure if we know exactly. I mean, I think we know, like, you got to get rid of the septic tanks, but that's probably the most obvious and easy thing. I think they're going to end up coming up with some goals, objectives, and policies that we got to do through pricing them all out and then figuring out how to do it. And what I think that work will lead to some of the solutions that we see: do septics, ban fertilizers, stuff like that.
Was there a time frame? I probably won't be around. You probably will or won't be around. Eventually, we're going to see some of the results of the poisoning of the bay
I think you're seeing them now.
You're seeing them now, but it's going to get worse and worse and worse because of the amount of population in Miami. So do they have an end goal at some point where they say, hey, look, in 5 years, has anybody thought of 5 years we have to do this, 10 years we have to do that, 15 years we have to do this?
I think that's what they're going to be in charge of. I think they got to start figure this thing out, bring in some technical professionals, set some goals, strategies, put some timelines on them, and revisit those very frequently. And then they've got to make not decisions, but they've got to make recommendations to the county commission on how to fix this stuff. Again,
has anybody looked at it before, or is this a brand new?
The Bay, I think people have looked at it all. Yeah, I think a lot of different people have looked at it. Maybe these guys are going to coalesce all the different studies that have been done and figure out, a comprehensive plan for how to attempt to fix this.
And hopefully it will be put out, in the airwaves and made public, and not, shoved in a drawer somewhere.
Well, you know what? Mayor Cava is pretty smart and environmentally focused, and I think that's what she'll end up doing, directing those guys to put something on the table as quickly as possible. So I'm encouraged. I think we've probably never been I've never been so confident in the county or South Dade, as I am now.
Yeah, because that's one of my questions. I said, what's your take on all new commissioners on the board?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I've communicated more with the commissioners in the last half a year than I had done in the previous 6 years before, right?
Really?
An energetic group of people, ask your opinion, willing to talk, willing to listen. Surely they're not going to get us everything we want, but at least they're listening.
Well, they definitely have a different viewpoint because, it used to listen to these guys, and they all kind of like along party lines, and now they have a different viewpoint, and everybody has their own opinion, which is nice, actually, if you want to know the truth, because it's great to have different people with different opinions.
Well, that's
the way you learn.
That's why they have term limits, right?
Yeah.
We get stale. We come into office and we have a certain mindset, and we work on those goals. We accomplish those goals. Let somebody else do it. This new group is the product of the term limits, and I think it's refreshing.
Okay, so I have a friend that lives in Palmetto Bay, and she asked me to ask you this question.
All right.
Okay. And I'm curious. I'm very curious.
I'm curious too.
I'm curious at your reaction.
I'm going to regret.
Would you consider annexing portions of Palmetto Bay? Some residents have asked for it.
You guys are crazy.
I'm just telling you. She asked me to ask the question. I said I would. She's a very nice lady.
Absolutely.
She's very politically active.
Why are you attacking them? They're doing a fine job. I swear.
The question didn't come from me.
I find this stuff. Okay, why is she attacking it? I find this stuff hilarious. The mayor and the council are doing a great job, right? It's a wonderful community. Where else would you want to be?
Well, apparently she wants to be in Pinecrest.
Well, look, you can move to Pinecrest if you want. We'll take you. The doors are open. They haven't put a gate up yet.
Okay,
so they're doing a great job. What do you want?
P. I'm not mentioning your name, but you just heard his answer. He wants you to stay in Palmetto Bay. Anyway, or move to Pinecrest. Okay, the last question, because we're going to have to wrap up. Luxcom, big issue in Palmetto Bay. Palmetto Bay seems to have a lot of issues. Luxcom is one. Luxcom's the old FP&L site.
Buy it.
Would Pinecrest be interested in
buying it for you?
No, not buying it.
What are you, crazy?
I'm not talking about buying it for us.
I knew I'd come in here. Where's my wallet?
I'm sitting there saying, would Pinecrest be interested? Hey, that's my buddy. In going in, if it was for sale, and buying it for one big park.
What are you going to ask me for? How much money?
Would you at least look at it? Would Pinecrest look at it?
I'll look at anything. I'm not going to wouldn't commit to it. Why would I? Why would somebody would have to put the case together? Why would we?
Well, number one is probably the last piece of land that's sitting on the bay in Dade County, undeveloped land. I don't see there being any other.
Okay, in that case, we would consider an annexing Palmetto. But you got land in the bay, man. We don't have any land on the bay. We would be killing for it. We'll take that piece from you. We'll annex it.
There you go. I'm just curious if
and what density can we put
Listen,
there?
Let me tell you something. I bought two. I didn't buy. I led the village of Palmetto Bay to buy 2 acres of land in downtown Palmetto Bay, and I got crucified for it because I didn't want a charter school there. I didn't think a charter school was necessary in the middle of in a downtown.
But you did the right thing. You bought it, so
yeah,
you don't have to
absolutely.
get into a legal spite. You get rid of it and.
I know. I mean, I got crucified.
So
I'm curious if you would look at the. I mean, I don't think Lexicom's gonna sell it to us, but there's always a possibility.
How many acres is it?
70 acres.
Jeez, man.
I mean, some people have wanted us. Can you write me a check? Some people have wanted to actually buy it and put boat ramps there, which I think people that live around that area would absolutely go nuts having boats driven down, 152nd, 144th, whatever the street that is. It's 152nd because it's by Westminster.
So boats on Saturday and Sunday outstrips the whatever multifamily that they're trying to put.
Listen, what's funny, and you're in the business, so you understand this, is people get set in their ways and they don't want any new building or construction to happen because it wasn't there 5 years ago.
You know what?
That's not realistic,
almost
right?
all of us moved here from somewhere else, and we got here and contributed to the traffic flow.
Yeah.
And they're still coming. I don't know. Look, those are tough decisions. I think on principle, though, if you don't want the development as a government, right, it's got a value to it.
Oh, it absolutely has a value.
It's got a designation to it. And if you were to take the value from it, if you were to downzone it, for instance, and take the value, you're going to get sued and lose.
Well, we're in the process of litigation right now with Lexicom.
So you lose, and you pay them for what you took. So why not just buy the damn thing?
I tend to agree with you. I mean, it would be actually, it's probably would be one of the nicest parks besides Deering Estate, because it's basically the same location anywhere in Dade County. So I mean, it would be a perfect purchase.
But they know what they're doing. They'll handle this problem. That's a tough problem.
It's a horrendous problem. That's why I think if Palmetto Bay went to Coral Gables and went to Pinecrest and we all kind of like divvied up some money and we kept the more development out of off of Old Cutler Road and Ludlam.
Why don't you transfer the development rights into the US 1 quarter?
You could, but that's not what they bought.
But that would be no fun.
Yeah.
Why not? They make the same money.
No, yeah, but that's not what well, first of all, that's not where they bought. That's not what they bought.
I'll tell you, let's do this. You give Pinecrest the property and we'll transfer the development rights into the US 1 corridor. Our portion. All right.
That might work. Listen, I've learned the only way to get some of this stuff knocked out is to be creative.
Well, just ask some questions.
You just can't say. You just can't say no.
I think it's interesting. That's a great question. And why not explore it? Right?
No, why not? Right.
We probably had 3 crazy ideas right there. Anytime
you just say no, it leads to number one, probably litigation, which our village is professional at.
So you're advocating just don't say no?
No, I'm just saying. There you go.
I knew this was a mistake.
It's okay. Anyway, I appreciate you being here. This is fun. We'll have to do this again.
Thanks for having me.
I hope this has been the best interview you've ever had on the community newspaper, because I know you've been here a couple times.
I worked with Hal a couple times. I really enjoy that. His questions don't have probably. Now I got to get on my phone after this, and so I'll apologize to anybody who offended. Some of those were trick questions.
None of them were trick questions. Get out of here.
And,
there's not one question. Name one question here that's a trick question.
There weren't. Pardon me for waffling or deflecting, but I don't want to insult.
Waffling and deflecting is fine as long as you let me call you out on it.
That's fine. You can do that. Look, I don't want to insult anybody.
No.
And
I got it. You're a good guy.
I truly believe that what's happening, with the Palmetto Bay stuff is a little silly, and they're doing a great job. And there's just you guys should knock it off.
Listen, you're a really good guy, and I really enjoyed interviewing you.
Yeah, I enjoyed being here. Thank you for having me.
Let me know when I can buy Village Hall. Anyway, so
we'll do that.
Yeah. Anyway, don't forget next week the Miami Foundation will be here. I love doing charities and nonprofits. So if you know anybody else who wants to come in and interview from a charity or nonprofit, please get in touch with me. If we didn't get to your questions, I apologize. No chicken shit of the week award because I don't have my chicken here.
What?
Yeah, I give a chicken shit of the week award. Don't worry about it. I'll do it next time you're here. Anyway, everybody enjoy your night. Stay safe. Go get your shots. They're available. Thank you.